Welcome back, everyone. Ready to dive into some more fascinating history.
Always.
This time, we're taking a deep dive into the life of Marilyn Monroe.
Ah, Marilyn. Such an icon.
Exactly. But we're going beyond the icon. We want to uncover the woman behind the Hollywood legend.
I like it. Peeling back the layers.
That's what we're doing. And we've got some great sources for this. Biographies, articles.
Oh, and some of her personal letters.
Yeah, those are especially revealing. Get ready for some shocking truths and surprising facts.
I bet there will be.
There definitely will be. And there's even a challenge for you guys at the end.
Ooh, I love a good challenge.
So ready to go beyond the glamour of the silver screen.
Absolutely. Let's see, Norma Jean, the woman behind the Marilyn persona.
Okay, so let's start at the beginning. Her childhood.
It wasn't easy. Instability, trauma, think foster homes, orphanages, even early sexual abuse.
That's awful.
It is heartbreaking, but understanding that pain is crucial to understanding Marilyn.
Makes sense.
It sheds light on her lifelong search for love and belonging.
But amidst all that chaos,
Uh,
there were signs, right? Like, wasn't her mother involved in Hollywood?
yes. Gladys, her mother, worked as a film negative cutter.
Wow, so almost like fate was pulling her towards the silver screen.
Right. And then there was Grace McKee, Gladys's friend who became Norma Jean's guardian.
Okay.
She really believed in Norma Jean's potential as an actress, took her to theaters, nurtured her beauty, exposed her to the world of Hollywood.
So it wasn't all just chance.
No. And there are stories about Norma Jean practicing acting techniques, even as a young girl.
Really? Like what?
Well, one exercise she used was imagining a rope pulling her upwards from the crown of her head.
Interesting.
Yeah, it was meant to improve her posture and create that, ethereal quality she became known for. Think like Marilyn, suspended from an invisible cloud.
I love that imagery.
It's those kinds of details that make her journey so fascinating. She was crafting her persona long before the world knew her name.
Yeah. That shows a level of dedication and ambition that people often don't realize.
Absolutely, and her commitment to learning, it didn't stop there. Later on, she delved into philosophy, literature, took acting, singing, and dancing lessons.
Wow. So she was always working to refine her craft,
Hmm.
even when people only saw the blonde beauty.
It's exact.
It's like she was fighting against being pigeonholed, even early on.
Right.
But let's face it, Hollywood in the 40s and 50s, it was a tough place for women,
It was.
especially back then.
The casting couch culture was rampant. What nobody saw behind all the glitz and glamour was the exploitation many young actresses faced.
I can imagine.
In fact, Marilyn herself admitted to sleeping with producers to get ahead.
Wow. That's pretty shocking.
It is.
But didn't she later write an article condemning sexual harassment in the industry?
She did, which just shows the impossible double bind women faced, right?
Yeah.
They were expected to use their sexuality to get ahead while facing judgment and condemnation for doing so. It's a contradiction Marilyn embodied perfectly.
And sadly, it's still relevant today. Think about how many young actresses still face similar pressures in the industry.
Absolutely.
That parallel is striking. It's a reminder that some things haven't changed as much as we'd like to believe. Speaking of tough choices, those famous nude calendar photos.
Oh, those photos. They tell a story of desperation and survival. What many people don't realize is that she was broke, on the verge of losing her car.
Really?
That $50 for the photo shoot was a lifeline.
Wow. And yet she handled the ensuing scandal with such grace and intelligence.
She did.
That candid interview she gave, it challenged the hypocrisy of the time and turned it to her advantage.
Exactly. That's Marilyn taking control of her narrative and turning a potentially career-ending scandal into a moment of empowerment.
And those same photos ended up launching Playboy magazine.
I know. It's amazing, isn't it?
The impact those photos had on pop culture, it's still felt today.
For sure.
And it's another example of how Marilyn, sometimes inadvertently, sparked conversations around female sexuality and challenged societal norms.
Definitely. But behind that image, she desperately wanted to be seen as a serious actress.
Yeah, she craved those meaty roles.
She did. The ones that would allow her to showcase her talent. But the studio kept pushing her into the dumb blonde mold.
I can't imagine the frustration, especially knowing how seriously she took her craft.
Oh, for sure. And she was incredibly insecure about her acting abilities, too.
Was she?
Oh, yeah. She sought validation and guidance from acting coaches. Her relationship with Natasha Lights, one of her early mentors, was particularly intense. Natasha became a mother figure to Marilyn, guiding her performances meticulously.
Oh, wow.
They were inseparable for years, but then, seemingly out of nowhere, Marilyn cut her off completely.
Really? Just like that?
It remains a mystery. What do you think might have led to this rift?
It's such a fascinating dynamic. Makes you think about the pressure she was under, the constant scrutiny, maybe even a fear of being overshadowed. But speaking of relationships, we can't ignore the men in Marilyn's life.
Right.
Joe DiMaggio, Arthur Miller, even President Kennedy, all very different figures who reveal different facets of her desires and vulnerabilities, like she was searching for something none of them could give her. So Joe DiMaggio first, the all-American baseball hero. You'd think, golden couple, right?
On the surface, sure. But behind closed doors, clashes.
Really?
Oh, yeah. Joe wanted a traditional wife at home while Marilyn's career taking off.
Ah, I see. The classic Hollywood tale.
Exactly. He couldn't handle the attention, how her image was, used, manipulated by the media.
And then there's that iconic scene in The 7-Year Itch with her white dress billowing over the subway grate.
Oh, yeah. That scene, it became a symbol of her sexuality. But it also reportedly caused a huge rift in their marriage. Imagine the tension.
I can only imagine.
Joe fuming while crowds are cheering, photographers going wild.
The irony is, Marilyn later said she wasn't even thinking about sex during that scene, just having fun.
Right. But that's the thing. Public perception, that male gaze, it all became part of her persona, whether she wanted it to or not.
It's a reminder of how women, especially in the spotlight, were so often reduced to their sexuality.
Absolutely. Their voices, experiences overshadowed.
And that, unfortunately, still resonates today.
For sure. So then we have Arthur Miller, the intellectual playwright. Such a contrast to DiMaggio.
Egghead weds hourglass, the papers called them. I guess that sums it up.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah.
But with Miller, it seemed like she found an equal, someone who appreciated her intellect.
Which she craved, right?
Oh, she did. Remember, Marilyn was a voracious reader. She had a library full of classics.
Wow, I didn't know that.
And she even took university courses. She yearned to be taken seriously for her mind, not just her body.
But even that relationship wasn't a fairy tale.
Sadly not. And this is where it gets heartbreaking. While working on The Misfits, written by Miller himself, Marilyn stumbled upon some of his private notes. He criticized her, expressed, almost shame about her. Can you imagine that betrayal?
It just shatters the illusion of their perfect intellectual match. And it brings us back to that question. Who was the real Marilyn? What was she hiding?
Exactly. Those private notes, they expose a vulnerability that's often overlooked. Here she is at the peak of her fame, married to the celebrated playwright, and she's still grappling with insecurity, the fear of not being good enough.
And then the miscarriages, that longing for a family she never had.
It adds another layer of tragedy to her story. It shows that fame and fortune can't shield you from, the pain of human experience, that yearning for love and connection.
It makes you wonder, what might have been different if she had found that unconditional love? And then, of course, the Kennedy brothers, John and Robert.
Ah, yes, the Kennedy connection, shrouded in mystery. There's that infamous "Happy Birthday, Mr. President" performance. So sultry, so suggestive.
That image is iconic.
It is. And that dress, she was literally sewn into it.
Wow. Like she was sending a message to the world.
Right. But the truth of their relationship, it remains elusive.
Classic Hollywood mystery.
Some say a brief affair, others a deeper connection, even love. There are even whispers about Robert Kennedy, John's brother.
It's like a Hollywood thriller. The power dynamics, the secrecy.
Exactly. And it's a reminder of how Marilyn's life was constantly intertwined with, powerful figures.
And how her story, even after death, is shaped by speculation. Our fascination with the private lives of the famous. Something we still see today.
For sure. That insatiable appetite for celebrity gossip hasn't gone away.
But as we move into the final chapter of Marilyn's life, things get darker.
Yeah. The pressures of fame, the pills, the struggle for recognition, it takes its toll. And the influence of her acting coach, Lee Strasberg, it becomes a key part of her story.
Strasberg, he was the acting guru, right?
Yep.
Trained Brando Dean.
He was incredibly influential, and for Marilyn, another father figure, but his methods, they were intense, demanding.
I can imagine.
He pushed her to delve into her past traumas, relive those emotions for her performances.
I can see how that would be both liberating and incredibly dangerous for someone like Marilyn.
Exactly. And while it may have helped her acting, some argue that his techniques contributed to her mental and emotional instability.
It's a blurry line, isn't it? between artistic exploration and exploiting trauma. That debate's still going on today.
It is. And then there's the Payne Whitney Psychiatric Clinic, that experience.
Awful. Locked up, stripped of her dignity.
A brutal reality of the time. Mental health was so poorly understood, and treatments often did more harm than good.
It's chilling.
Marilyn described it as a prison. Bars on the windows, constant surveillance. She even used her acting skills to get attention, to escape.
It's a stark reminder of the stigma surrounding mental illness, even for someone as famous as Marilyn.
And sadly, that stigma persists. Think about how many people still suffer in silence, afraid to seek help.
We've come a long way, but not far enough.
No. But despite all this, Marilyn tried to make a comeback. Bought a house, graced magazine covers, started working on new films.
A fighter.
But the demons were still there. Insomnia, the pills, the pressure to be Marilyn.
It was all too much.
And then, August 5th, 1962, she was found dead in her Brentwood home.
The world was in shock. Suicide, overdose, something else.
The circumstances are still a mystery. Conspiracy theories abound, linking her to the Kennedys, the mafia. It's a testament to her enduring mystique.
Like her life itself was a Hollywood film script. The meteoric rise, the passionate affairs, the ending that leaves everyone wanting more.
Exactly. But beyond the intrigue, the speculation, we have to remember the real loss. A woman who brought joy to millions, who struggled, and who ultimately couldn't escape the pressures of that world.
Yeah, it's a tragic ending to a life that, like you said, was both dazzling and deeply troubled. But Marilyn's story, it still resonates today, doesn't it?
Absolutely. And it's interesting to think about how her experiences kind of parallel the struggles of celebrities today.
Yeah, I see that.
That relentless media scrutiny, the pressure to maintain this perfect image, the blurring of public and private life, it's all amplified in the age of social media.
It's true. It's like she was a prototype for the modern-day celebrity, dealing with issues that are even more intense now.
Right. I mean, can you imagine what it would have been like for her to navigate, like, Twitter and Instagram?
Oh, I don't even want to think about it.
It makes you wonder, right? How might her story have been different in today's world?
Yeah, would she have had more control over her image with social media? Or would it have just been completely overwhelming?
It's impossible to know, but it definitely makes you think about the price of fame, and how technology has changed the game for those in the spotlight.
For sure. And I think it highlights the importance of, looking beyond those carefully curated images we see on social media, recognizing that there are complex human beings behind those personas.
Exactly.
So after this deep dive into her life, what's the biggest takeaway for you? What's the essence of Marilyn Monroe?
I think it's, recognizing the multifaceted nature of her persona. She was so much more than just a beautiful face, a blonde bombshell. Marilyn was intelligent, ambitious, deeply vulnerable.
She really was.
A woman who challenged societal norms, fought for her place in the world, and ultimately, left an unforgettable mark on our culture.
Yeah. And despite the tragedy of her ending, there's something incredibly inspiring about her spirit, wouldn't you say?
Absolutely. That resilience, her refusal to be defined by others, it's powerful.
Yeah.
And that's why I think it's so important to, engage with her work on a deeper level.
Which brings us to the Blonde Ambition Challenge.
Oh, yes, the challenge.
So we want you, our listeners, to choose one Marilyn Monroe film to watch.
Yeah.
Anyone that catches your eye. But this time, watch it through the lens of everything we've talked about today.
Exactly.
Think about Norma Jean, the woman behind the Marilyn mask.
How does that change things?
Yeah. How does your understanding of her life change your perception of her performance? What new layers do you see? We want to know.
Share your thoughts with us on social media.
We'd love to hear your insights.
Absolutely.
Well, that's all for this deep dive into the life and legacy of Marilyn Monroe.
Such a fascinating journey.
Until next time, keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep looking beyond the surface.